so we'll go ahead and call the public hearing to order. We only have about a dozen folks today, so hopefully everyone is able to stay tuned as we make our way through their testimony. Any comments from chairs or rankings before we begin?
All good, Mr. Chair.
All right,
Looking forward to it, Mr. Chair.
there we go. All right, so first up, we have Deputy Commissioner Alexandra Dunn from DECD. Good morning.
Good morning. Representative Curry, thank you. Senator Hartley, Representative Buckby, and Senator Martin, thank you so much for having us today. I am Alexandra Dom, Deputy Commissioner at DECD, and I want to introduce, before I go much further, we have a new deputy at DECD. So Paul Robertson has joined us, and he will be, you might hear from him today, you'll certainly hear from him in the future. He has a background in the tourism and entertainment industry, among many other, a long professional career. So we're excited to have him join, and I want to introduce him to the committee this morning.
Well, Paul.
Thank you, Senator Hartley. So I'm going to jump right in. So the bill that we want to testify in particular in favor of today is House Bill 5124, and it's largely technical in nature. But I wanted to run through a couple, it's 4 elements essentially, and I want to run through the 4 different elements and why they're crucial to keeping the trains running at DECD. So the first section has to do with the Small Business Express program, and essentially what this change does is allow us to partner with outside entities to implement Small Business Express, which was very much the intent of the program. Very much was meant to be using Connecticut nonprofits, community lenders as our partners to implement. And that's just, we need technical change to the language to allow us to do that. So that's section 1. Section 2 has to do with our 2 new capital investment programs, Communities Challenge and Innovation Corridor. And the implementer bill last session just left some ambiguities around the dollar amounts for these programs and also around the application process. So we want to add some clarifying language that clarifies the exact max funding for each of the 2 programs, and then also lays out the detailed application process that we're going to go through to bring in applications and evaluate them and ultimately make awards through these 2 grant programs. So that is section 2. Section 3 has to do with our State Historic Preservation Office, and would make a change so that the fees that are collected when we have applications for our historic tax credit program, we collect fees, and those are currently restricted to only be used on administration of the tax credit program. And so this change that we're proposing would allow us to use those fees for a broader set of uses, including programs to forward historic preservation amongst communities that are historically underserved, historically haven't been taking advantage of these programs in the past. And so we want to be able to further the mission of historic preservation in ways other than just basically paying for the administration of the tax credit itself, which is the current limitation. And then lastly, number 4 is just a change that was requested it's literally the insertion of the word "and." It was a technical change requested by the legislative office. We are absolutely supportive and fine with that change, but certainly the least significant of the 4. And I think that wraps it up. I'm available for questions, obviously. We also have Kyle Abercrombie, who I failed to introduce. I apologize, you're all familiar with. And we also have our Business Development Program Manager, Sheila Hummel, as well, if there's any questions on any of the Small Business Express items. But with that, I will conclude, and thank you, and let me know if you have any questions.
Thank you, Commissioner, and pleasure to meet you, Paul. I don't know if you want to take a moment and say hello and introduce yourself.
Yes, thank you very much. It is quite an honor and a pleasure to be here. Look forward to working with all of you. Quick thing, my background is in both sports management, sponsorship, working for the Connecticut Convention and Sports Bureau. I've worked in media, worked with UConn, and I'm totally committed to Connecticut, and I've been to all 169 towns.
There you go. All right, we will kick it off with Chairman Hartley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thanks, Alexandra, and to the Commerce, to the DECD team for being with us. Just a few comments, if I might. So on section 1, this has already been in effect since passage. Was it in July, Alexandra?
Mhm.
And so tell me, can you give us, an update as to how the program is going to date?
So I'll give you an update on how we've been implementing it without this change. Is that the question? Is sort of how
Well,
we've been...
that's part of the question. So what are
Okay.
you doing now, and what's the problem that you need?
Yeah,
fix?
so the answer to the first part of the question I will take, which is that we went out for an RFP to find the partners to help us implement the Small Business Express program, and we are in the process of contracting with them and signing those partners up, which is the reason that we need this change before we go ahead and sign up with various community partners to help us implement this program. So I think the timing is so I think that is the reason for the timing, is we went out to seek the partners, but we need to officially be allowed to partner with them by virtue of this change to the bill. And then in terms of loans that have actually been made to date, I'll turn that over to Sheila. Is that the second part of your question, Senator Hartley?
Yeah. But so let's just talk about the first part. So right now, what is the problem in trying to sign up the CFDIs?
Just that in the current language, in the current bill, it does not allow us to partner with outside entities. And so we're looking for permission. I think that was always the intent. It doesn't represent the change.
That's right. That's why I'm kind of surprised. That was the intent. How could we have missed that? Yeah.
I cannot speak to, but it does seem that it was overlooked or ambiguous. I shouldn't say it wasn't. It may just be that we would like it to be a little clearer. Kyle, can you jump in there on the language?
Yeah, sure. So essentially a key sentence was stricken from the bill last year when we made modifications to the statute. So this would just insert a section that just allows us to partner with outside entities. It was simply an oversight. This is a technical correction. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. So you haven't been making any loans or anything to date. It's not up and running.
Correct. We put out an RFP. We're very close to the finish line of getting those partners signed up, but we feel the change is needed in order to implement the program.
Yeah. Okay. Because I thought by now we'd be having applications in the pipeline and had this thing stood up. Okay. Thank you. You were going to go on to the second part.
No, I think you answered the second part of your own question, which is that we haven't started yet.
Yes. Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Next up, we have Representative Nuccio. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Thank you very much. And thank you, Alexandra, for coming for this. I have a couple of questions I'm hoping maybe you could answer fairly easily. For section 2, and talking about the detailed application process that's going to be done, can you give us an idea of what that process is going to look like or what the requirements are going to be?
Absolutely. So we have 2 programs. We have one Innovation Corridor and one Communities Challenge. I'm happy to run through the process on both. Would that be helpful?
If we can do the Innovation Corridor first. I'm trying to write it down as we go.
No problem.
On
the Innovation Corridor, we solicited intents to apply in the fall. So we had municipalities along with a consortium of their applicant partners indicate that they were intending to apply to the program. So we knew kind of what the demand was that was out there. And then on March 4th, so coming up very shortly, is when the full applications for the Innovation Corridor will be due. And those are going to be very comprehensive applications for these very transformational, or certainly ones that will be funded certainly are going to be very transformational, large capital projects that create jobs, create vibrancy and campus-like feeling in the physical space that they're renovating or developing. And those applications will have, the detail around their budget, their visuals to show what the actual physical construction project will look like. They'll have support letters from hopefully a wider range of community partners, educational partners, private sector partners. Ideally want to have local legislature and local governments involved. So these applications will really run the gamut on who's going to be the project team, what's the project going to look like, how much is it going to cost, where's the money coming from that isn't the state money, and they'll be scored on a rubric that for the innovation corridor, we're still finalizing that rubric, and it'll be scored to make sure that the projects are in keeping with the intent of the program, which is, I mentioned before, creating jobs, transforming physical areas, neighborhoods, campuses, making sure we have an equitable lens on the development that occurs, making sure we're bringing along all the members of the community in the job creation and in the access to those improvements.
Okay, and the next one?
Communities Challenge is a little bit farther along. We staggered these programs so that we wouldn't be running them at the same time and overwhelming our municipal partners and overwhelming our own staff. So the Communities Challenge, we received our applications in the second week of January. We received 52 applications. This program is slightly smaller. The grant, it's not slightly, it's much smaller. The grants are up to $10 million. And we got a lot of applications closer to that minimum mark of $1 million. So these are smaller projects, and we got 52 applications. We are about halfway through reviewing those, and the rubric there has obviously been well established since we're already reviewing the applications. It prioritizes many of the same elements, equity, job creation, providing missing features to the communities that don't have an X. We want to help them, build whatever that key missing feature is in their community. Private sector involvement is rated very highly, and bringing match dollars to the project is rated very highly. That's important in both of our programs, is bringing match dollars to match the state dollars. The Communities Challenge application awards will be announced in April.
Okay, hold on one second. I'm trying to type all that. Definitely not a stenographer. Okay, thank you. And then in section 3, the state historic preservation process, will this be open to all historic districts in the state?
Yeah, we're in very early stages of figuring out what these funds would be used for. There is not I don't believe it's been decided that there'd be any limitations on which districts would be able to take advantage of these funds. We're going to come up with some pilot programs if this change is passed, come up with some pilot programs of additional ways to use the funds that aren't just the administration, like I talked about. And if those pilot programs are successful, we'll roll that out more widely. But I think the answer is really what I said first, which is we're in very early stages of figuring out how we would use these funds.
Okay, I'm going to take this moment to plug a little issue that I'm finding as happening in my towns. I have two, actually all my towns are pretty old, but a couple of them are pretty historic, and I have a historic green in Tolland, and we're trying to navigate ADA accessibility on 300-year-old granite stones. So if you guys have any information on historic districts and how to kind of make them ADA compliant or think of looking at that, I would love to hear about it.
Yeah, we can definitely connect you with some folks in our SHPO office that I'm sure I don't have the magic answer to that issue on this Zoom, but I'm sure they've dealt with that issue before and hopefully have some good ideas.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And thank you, Mr. Chair, for letting me ask the questions.
Absolutely. It doesn't appear that we have any other hands up. Just a quick question with regards to the historic preservation, and I apologize if you've answered this already. I know that some of the work that you're in the early plans for is going to align with the strategic plan that expires in 2023. When does that work, or the shared stewardship to 2023? When have they began discussing to re-up that document or that plan? What does that look like?
Kyle, you look like you're about to say something, which would have been great, because otherwise I have to say, Rep. Curry, I do not know the answer, and I apologize.
We'll follow up with you, Representative.
Yeah.
Excellent. I appreciate that. All right. Anyone else? No. Appreciate your time, Commissioner.
Thank you, members of the committee. We really appreciate your support, hopefully, of House Bill 5124.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, so Kyle and Paul, were you here as a block with the commissioner?
Yes, that's correct.
Yes,
We're all
correct.
together.
Okay. Is there anything either of you would like to add to what the commissioners already noted?
I would just say go Huskies, big game tonight.
Oh, big, yes.
Oh, sports ball.
And just thank you for the time.
Pleasure to meet you, Paul. All right, next, oh, and Sheila, I apologize. You're part of that block as well?
Yes. Yeah.
Excellent. It's great to see you, Sheila.
Yeah. Nice seeing you again.
All right, next up, we have Zane Glenn from Mitchell College. All right, doesn't look like we have that. Next up, Ashley Zane from CBIA. Is Ashley here today?
Just give her 1 second.
All right. Hey, Ashley.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, good morning.
Great. Good morning. So Chairs Hartley and Curry, ranking members Buckby and Martin, thank you so much for allowing me to testify today. My name is Ashley Zane. I'm a government affairs associate here for the Connecticut Business and Industry Association. I'm here in support of SB 101, an act concerning workforce development programs for incarcerated persons and persons re-entering the community after incarceration. Ensuring that programs align to employer needs is critical to ensuring that the placement of these individuals is successful and that we reduce recidivism rates within the state. As you all know, the state is continuing to invest in workforce development programs, and it would be disastrous if the state were spending money on programs that don't actually match with careers. And I really want to emphasize careers because we're looking for a long-term placement, high-paying jobs in in-demand industries, not just jobs. So with that, we would ask that the study be tailored towards programs like manufacturing, healthcare, IT services, and life science, which have huge job deficits as outlined by the Governor's Workforce Council. Individuals in this workforce pipeline have valuable skills, and a lot of the times these individuals are overlooked and undervalued. So we really want to make sure that we're filling these job deficits with individuals like these who have potential and who have the skills necessary to be successful. We would also ask that the study take a look at what type of data is being collected. We really want to focus on a study that's looking at long-term data after someone is placed within a position. You know, again, because we are focusing on careers and not jobs. So if somebody is placed within a career and they only last 6 months within that position or are back within the system within 6 months, does that really count as a successful placement and a successful program? And again, many of our, for example, manufacturing companies are looking for long-term stays within these positions. They really need these people in the jobs. And then finally, we do ask that Section 2 be eliminated from the bill. We just found out through Department of Corrections that we're waiting on approval from OPM to develop the toolkit with the Society for Human Resource Management. So we're going to be working with stakeholders, including CBI business members. I believe Stanley Black & Decker has been interested in getting involved in this process and giving us feedback. And then also the Society of Human Resource Management giving their expertise to really create a comprehensive tool that we can use and provide to businesses so that we can get these individuals employed and also get rid of any of those perceived barriers to hiring this pipeline. We also, assuming we get the funding approval from OPM, want to have this up and ready by fall of 2022. So we're right there. And then we would be responsible for marketing it and making sure that companies are aware of it. So with that said, thank you very much for the opportunity to testify today, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ashley. I appreciate your time. Any members have questions for Ashley regarding this proposal? I do not see any hands. I would just simply say we appreciate the proposal. And oh, Senator Hartley, you do have your hand up.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. So Ashley, this is obviously a very important subject. And it's also, I think, more than timely. I think the time has passed for us to be up and running with these kinds of programs in view of the number of people who are end of termers coming back out into our communities, and then also in terms of the landscape of our unemployment challenges. And then couple that, of course, with COVID, which has only helped to escalate that. So last year, Ashley, I think you're familiar with the fact that we put out a part of SB3, which talked about standing up a vocational village, which would essentially allow for the actual initiation of credentialing courses that were recognized by industry, so that we could have this seamless exodus of our end of termers. Now, the DOC has, put out their proposal of how they are going to be rolling this out, and we kind of coupled that with the resources we were fortunate enough to get through ARPA. Are you working with them on this with regard to what credentialing that they're focusing on? They're primarily, as I see their proposal, it's CDLs, and then there is a piece on manufacturing training, blueprint reading, and some CAD work and things of that sort. So are you connected with this? I mean, are you people working jointly?
Yes, so thank you for that question. We are working jointly within the vocational village. The employer toolkit is actually going to be part of that vocational village programming. So we are included within that. And in terms of looking at what type of workforce development programs, we are providing them input. We are in consultation and conversations with Department of Corrections. And we have recently got involved within the Governor's Workforce Council, the DEI initiative and the reentry aspect. So we are working with state governments to really try to make sure that this is comprehensive and geared towards what we need in Connecticut.
Okay, so we've got they're talking about a welding program, which is obviously something we know is a pain point for us in terms of meeting employment needs. And then CDLs, agree with that. And then the manufacturing training, which I talked about, blueprint reading. But you identified IT and health services, and I don't see anything here on that. Are you engaged in those conversations on those particular sectors?
We are, yep, especially within the healthcare industry, as we see a huge amount of burnout between nurses, PAs, because of COVID. We're trying to figure out what type of barriers are currently in place that would prevent someone who has been formerly incarcerated from taking on some of these roles, whether it's lab technician to help process exam results. So we are working with them and through the DEI initiative and also some of the chambers of commerce as well.
Can you just briefly give us a thumbnail on the DEI, because just for the edification of my colleagues?
Yeah, so historically, as we all know, the prison system has had a lot of minorities within the system. So when they go to look for healthcare professions, having a record can be a hindrance to getting some of these positions, regardless of your credentialing. And additionally, when they are in the prison systems, a lot of people take the jobs that are within the clinics. So helping out nurses, helping out physicians, helping out psychologists. But when they do enter back into the community, because of their record, they're not allowed in to the healthcare system to take on the jobs that they did have within the prison pipeline. So really focusing on what those barriers are, how we can get rid of them, how we can overcome them, and how human resource officials and people within these companies can start accessing the talent and the credentialing and the skills that are there.
So is that going to be, Ashley, part of the toolkit, or where is this going to be launched, or how?
Yes, so within the toolkit, we're going to be looking at all sectors. So we're not just going to be focusing on one in particular. We are going to try to make sure that this is broad-based and applicable, with obviously some specifics based on whatever industry that you're looking at, because healthcare is going to be very different than manufacturing. So we are going to try to make sure that this is applicable statewide, and of course, getting stakeholder involvement from businesses, hospitals, and everyone like that.
Well, and so that's the challenge. The last part of your statement, getting buy-in and working collaboratively with the stakeholders. And so can you speak to how that part of the initiative is going?
Yeah, so we are in the beginning phases of that, since we don't have the approval yet for the funding to be able to create this toolkit. But we have talked to member companies, including, the larger ones like Stanley Black & Decker. And then once we have the funding approval from OPM, we're really going to launch off and talk to our membership to get their input and their feedback. We do have a business law and liability council here at CBIA that includes a lot of the human resource folks. So they will likely be our first stop. But again, the Society for Human Resource Management, we will also use them and utilize their network to make sure we have the right people involved.
Ashley, what's the number that in terms of underwriting this from OPM?
I will get back to you. I'm not sure the exact number, but I'll make sure you have it.
Okay. Yeah, I just want to make sure that, we're not doing what we accuse or what we see that happens so much out there. And that is, we're in our own little bubble, our own silo, and we're just not connecting the dots here so as to, light these things up and begin moving on them. Studies are wonderful, but we are way past that. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks a lot, Ashley.
Thank you, Senator. Any other questions or comments for Ms. Zane? It does not appear to be so. Ashley, do you know if there's any discussion with regards to this proposal to tie in Unified District Number 1, which is the primary and secondary school for youth within the DOC system? And I know length of stay is different, and I know that this is likely targeted for older residents post 18. But it just might be worth having that conversation to see if there is an ability to tie that in to get folks at that age also either interested or moved into a career post 18.
To be perfectly honest with you, I don't think we've quite brought them in yet, but I think that would be a great idea. Make sure we can get, once they do leave, positions or at least interest in that next step of career development. So hopefully that they don't end up in the older prison population down the line. So we would definitely be open to that.
Great, looking forward to that conversation. And I think that is all for you today. So we appreciate your time.
Thank you, everyone.
Take care. Next up, we have Mr. George from the Insurance Association of Connecticut. President George, pleasure to see you.
Pleasure to see you, Representative Curry, Senator Hartley, members of the committee. Thank you very much. I am Eric George, President of the Insurance Association of Connecticut, and we're a state-based trade association representing the property and casualty and life insurance industries. We're here today to offer comment on Senate Bill 99, which deals with electronic remote notarization. We fully support this bill. We strongly support this bill. And we wanted to express to the committee that there have been many lessons learned through the course of years, but the COVID pandemic absolutely taught us some ones that we can't afford to ignore. And that is the maintenance and the continuation of the continuity of commerce. Because what we have seen is, in an effort to keep public health at the forefront, we and our companies have had their workforce stay at home. And for the most part, that's been seamless. People can Zoom in and do their work. But where it's not seamless is when hard copies and in-person notarizations are still required. We had the benefit of a short-term executive order from the governor, which expired last June. And since then, it has been quite the challenge going back to the way it was before. Remote notarization, specifically SB 99, will greatly aid in this. And, you know, from the insurance industry's perspective, we deal with notarized documents all the time. We deal with them in terms of title transfer documents. We deal with them in terms of affidavits of debt in connection with subrogation matters. We deal with them in terms of client interrogatory responses. In our industry, obviously, a huge component of the Connecticut economy has been involved, very much so, with all of the stakeholders on this issue this year. In past years, we have not been as vocal, but this year we know that it is so critical to our industry that we have lent our voice to this group. And the stakeholders, I believe, are moving towards crafting a mutually agreeable remote notarization statutory platform. We've been operating in good faith, and I believe that all of the players of this coalition, not coalition, but really a stakeholder working group, are moving towards agreement on remote notarization bill. So when this is completed, and I have to admit that it's not completed just yet, we will offer this language to the committee, and we're hopeful that this committee will consider this language, consider it as possible substitution of the existing bill, which is a working group. So I can answer any questions that you might have, but from the insurance community's perspective, having only in-person wet signatures for notarization is really not tenable. We need to join the other 39 or 40 states that have been doing this in the country. And I'm happy to answer any questions that anyone might have.
Thank you very much, Eric. Senator Harley.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair. So, Eric, welcome to the party. Yes.
Maybe better late than never. How about that, Senator Harley?
Yeah. Well, yeah, and we're very, very glad to have the insurance industry working on this issue in part of this coalition. It's been an adventure, but your last comment there about the 39 or 40 other states, yeah, everything is passing us by. And the insurance industry is one sector that is greatly, I think, touched by this. We saw the EO, and then I was told afterwards that no one really used the benefit of what the executive order allowed us to do. Can you speak to that from the insurance sector? How it has changed for you now, as not having the benefit of that latitude to do e-notarization?
So that would be a 180-degree difference from what I'm hearing from our member companies. If you look at it from the logistical perspective of how this works from insurance, we employ a lot of notaries. We keep a lot of notaries on staff, because there are so many documents that must be notarized in the course of insurance operations. So when folks are basically told to stay at home for public health reasons, and we understand, as I've learned this, that your home Epson, your home brother printer is not going to meet the grade of what you need to do from your company's perspective. We have a real bottleneck in terms of the process. So I'm not quite sure who said that it's not being utilized. That is not what I'm hearing from my companies. This has jumped to a very high priority for us. And, we've learned the lessons from COVID, but let's not be fooled by the fact that COVID is one example. Whenever there's an issue going forward that might hinder the continuity of commerce, that needs to be thought about on the front end. And as you pointed out, with Relona being in nearly 40 states, and by the way, it was after COVID, it was after 2020 that many of these states came on board to adopt Relona. It was because we've learned from those lessons. We know that in the 21st century, almost everything, perhaps not all, but almost everything that we do that doesn't require the building of a widget, the changing of oil, the hands-on that you need to be there for, so much of this can be done remotely and electronically. And notarization, it's high time for that to join the group.
Thanks for those comments, Eric. No, actually, because we really hadn't hitherto heard from the insurance sector, it was not at all from the insurance sector that those comments were offered. Can I just ask you to maybe speak to one of the grave concerns about going forward with this, and we want to make sure we get it right, and that is the issue of fraud.
So obviously that's at the top of everybody's concern list of. So much of what you'll see in the language that we are going to present to you, and by the way, you don't have to wait for us. You can look at RLONA statutes, and RLONA is the revised uniform law on notarizations. You can look at RLONA statutes in the other 40 states. It's going to be very similar because revised statutes coming out of the Law Commission by their nature must be very much in line with the others. That's how they work so well. If you look at that, there are many safeguards in place on the obligation of the notary. The notary has to do their due diligence in terms of identifying and making sure the person is who they say they are. There's obligations in terms of how notarizations are recognized. And much of the platforms, the software, whether it's Notarized, whether it's DocuSign, whether it's another platform, have many of those safeguards built into their platforms. There's no way to completely avoid fraud. What you want to do is limit the chances of fraud to the best of your ability. Right now, if an individual wants to fabricate who they are in an in-person notarization meeting, they can do so. And I'm sure it has happened where somebody has fraudulently claimed to be somebody who they're not with falsified documents and gotten one over on the notary. This is obviously very important, but I believe that with the statute that are in other states and what we're going to be providing you with, safeguards will be in place, hopefully to alleviate those concerns.
Thanks for that, Eric. And one other item that was kind of put out there on this issue was that Connecticut's landscape is, how shall I say it, different than many of the other states, and therefore e-notarization is not that easily accomplished here. And that probably might be more relevant to, for example, the real estate sector than the insurance. But do you have any comments on that?
So on the front end, I'm not quite sure what our statutory framework would be that would make us so different than other states. So I'm not quite sure I would understand what that's based on. However, I do understand, and from the real estate perspective, and from both sides of the real estate perspective, from those who are marketing and selling real property and those who are representing the clients that are either selling or purchasing real property, I understand from their perspective that you need to have this as tight as possible to make sure that it works and that it safeguards the buyer and the seller. I understand and appreciate it. As a matter of fact, while it's not of, I hate to say it, but I don't have a dog in that fight because our notarizations are really not involved in real estate. We are still in this with the real estate folks because we know how important it is overall to general commerce. But I would say that if you get an opportunity to talk to the folks who are representing the real estate stakeholders, I'd encourage them to explain that because I really don't know how Connecticut would be that different from other states.
Well, thank you for that. No, I just wanted to give you a chance to comment on that. And it may just be more specific to that sector, real estate. Thanks for testifying today. You have given us your testimony in writing, so it's online for the benefit of all of our other colleagues who are, many people are back and forth between other meetings today.
Certainly have, Senator, absolutely. And I've been joined by a couple of my national sister trades. You'll see language on file from APCIA, NAMIC, and ACLI. So it is a across the board industry interest. So you're going to see testimony from all of us.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you. Representative Thomas, I know your hand was up. Did you have a question still or no?
the good chairwoman asked and answered, or had asked and answered the question I had in mind. Thank you very much.
I think she actually covered all of our questions. So Eric, I think you are off the hook and we appreciate your time today. I know that this large coalition of folks working on this are doing their best to get us to a point where we'll have a good product, hopefully at the end of this session. So we appreciate your time, your work, and please pass that along to those members.
Thank you, Representative Curry. Be well.
Thank you. Next up, John Blair. Good afternoon, sir. Oh, you're muted. You're muted, John.
My bad. We'll
2 years
restart.
later, and we're still dealing with
I should know this by now.
this.
How are you? Good afternoon, Representative Curry, Senator Hartley, Representative Buckby, and members of the Commerce Committee. My name is John Blair. I am here on behalf of CBIA. I also want to, at the outset, say what a pleasure it is to testify before the Commerce Committee, because my first job in state government was clerk of the Commerce Committee for Senator Brian McDermott and Representative Lee Samowitz, and I believe the other Representative Curry was in office at that time, so the late 90s. But without further ado, I'm here to testify, along the same lines as the IAC and Eric George on Senate Bill 99. This issue of remote notarization and being able to conduct business on a remote basis, it's right for the time and place that we live in. If passed, it would signal to Connecticut policymakers recognize RON laws, that they create efficiencies and cost savings. In these kinds of legislative proposals, the result in business choosing to come to Connecticut and encourage businesses to stay in Connecticut. Remote online notarization uniform acts have been passed, as mentioned before, by 40 other states. It certainly was accelerated by the pandemics. These laws have allowed for more timely and effective business practices as we step into a more remote and digital age. These kinds of laws benefit both businesses and consumers alike. Under the new laws, notaries are able to work more efficiently and reduce expensive. RON eliminates many time-consuming and costly requirements for mobile notary and notary signing agent assignments, such as travel, fuel, purchases, and having to print documents for loan signing assignments. Removing the need for notaries to drive to appointments saves time and allows them to schedule more assignments per day, which in turn means more income. I'm going to mention just a couple of industries, because I think it's important to recognize that these types of laws affect a wide cross-section of businesses within our state. They include attorneys and law firms, mortgage companies, real estate companies, hospitals, construction companies, insurance companies, and small business owners. In closing, I'd like to reiterate that in the 40 states that have passed laws, that appears to be working effectively, and I think we can learn from their experiences. In fact, most, if not all, have only seen commercial and financial benefit in allowing remote notary laws on the books. We expect Connecticut to incur the same benefit in passing the RON Act, and for these reasons, I respectfully requested the committee work with the coalition to come up with a proposal this year. I'd like to thank the committee for its consideration of my testimony. I'd be certainly happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, John. Senator, did you have anything for Mr. Blair?
No, just a hello, like the new spectacles. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm getting a little older, Senator Hartley.
I think a lot of us have those.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Good to see you.
Any members have questions? It does not appear so. Yeah, I would just reiterate my comments that I made to Eric. I appreciate everybody working towards this end goal. It's 2022. Hopefully we can kind of keep up with the times with regards to this piece of legislation. So thank you for your time, John.
Thank you, Representative Curry.
Next up, we have Chris Blair from CMC. Chris.
Mr. Chair, we do not have Chris present.
All right. Next up, we have Marcel Bell from Manchester. It's great to see you. Thanks for joining us today. Good.
Okay. Can you hear me?
I can, yes.
Okay, all right. Everybody, I am pleased to be testifying in favor of this Race Bill 101, the Act concerning workforce development for the incarcerated. I'm not plugged into all of what you guys are doing. This is very enlightening for me. I'm just a regular citizen, and I just want to give you a quick context of why I'm interested in this bill. In 2017, I read about a new DOC initiative for young offenders at Cheshire Correctional. It was called TRUE, which is an acronym for Truthfulness, Respect, Understanding, and Elevation. It was and is an innovative program that rethinks incarceration for young men and uses mentoring and special programming to influence their development as responsible community members. It was a groundbreaking approach and was even featured in a segment of 60 Minutes about 2 years ago, which I've included a link to. But I was so proud and impressed by Connecticut's willingness to create a program like this, that I'm hoping that this kind of farsightedness and commitment to social justice can take another step through this Bill 101. As you all know, Connecticut employers are facing a major skills gap. There are thousands of jobs where they can find people who have the skills to fill those jobs. But at the same time, there's a really big opportunity gap in the state. It's one that's produced by poverty, racial discrimination, and unequal access to education. And I don't think that there's anywhere that the perpetuation of this opportunity gap is more apparent than in our correctional institutions. Why, for instance, couldn't the incarcerated be part of the feeder tube for the state's new partnership with Google? This certificate-based digital skills training program is delivered on a virtual platform and promises to equip workers with marketable skills in 3 to 6 months with no degree or experience necessary. And the answer to that question is that Connecticut inmates have little or no supervised access to computers and technology. And in today's world, computer illiteracy is a major stumbling block to any kind of employment. Based on my just interest in TRUE, I'm corresponding with one of the mentors in that program, and I also am friends with a social worker who works with some of the inmates at Cheshire, and it's just astounding how little opportunities they have to access that kind of technology. Imagine, if you will, your life and ability to work, communicate, and function productively without technology. And imagine even further having no exposure to or understanding of how to use a computer, tablet, or smartphone. How could you identify a job, communicate with a prospective employer, or present yourself as a viable candidate? Access to technology must be among the first steps in creating what could be an exciting new vision of workforce development for our correctional institutions, a vision which could be a win-win-win for the incarcerated, the state's employers, and the promotion of social equity. Now, we understand that computer access for inmates is considered a dangerous and high security risk, yet there are companies that are addressing this need. One, for instance, provides military-grade hardware, digital security, live agent monitoring, and even individualized learning plans without demanding exorbitant fees from inmates for service usage, which some companies do. And so bottom line, if there's a will, bottom line, if there's a will to open up Connecticut's technology, the advantages of technology for Connecticut's inmates and prepare them for today's jobs, there's a way it can be done. So I urge you to use this bill to envision and begin moving in that direction. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you very much. And I've appreciated your communications over the last few weeks on this particular issue. Senator Harley.
Oh, thank you. Can you hear me? Yeah. So first of all, I want to say thanks so much, Marcella, for being with us today and for your comments and also for your advocacy on this issue. It's kind of a situation that almost makes no sense that we, have not gone further with this. And yes, there are some very good programs that exist right now, and you point out the TRUE program. So last session, we did do a piece which was in an omnibus bill, if you will, to start and stand up this model that we called vocational village. Is part of that, and we identified sectors that we thought were obviously pain points in terms of actually meeting workforce needs in industry and business, but also the other side of it was to provide skills and credentials that translate in the real world and provide an opportunity for end of termers to launch careers. And one of the ones that was identified was coding. And that was specific to a program that existed, a very successful program and still exists in California called The Last Mile. And so that's one of the areas that I am going to be connecting. We're going to connect back with DOC to talk about that. But I just want to thank you for your advocacy on this. And, perhaps this is a vehicle that we don't want to be duplicative in terms of the work that's already been done, but we want to continue to scale that, and also in a very targeted manner. So I thank you for being here and for your testimony, and I'm sure you've given us that in written version so that those who are going back and forth have that benefit as well to see your words.
Yes, I do. And I included in my testimony, written testimony, an article by a current inmate, which assesses, he did an article on making reentry easier for inmates, but it just astounds me that this access to technology is not available. I mean, even the person who talked about, I think it was from CBIA, using the incarcerated as a pipeline for these jobs. How can you do that without, you can't even send an email? I mean, this is, no familiarity with smartphones, tablets, with computers. To me, this is a real basic first step. And if you could get over this hurdle, it would make an enormous difference, because the learning resources online and what it would open up for these inmates would be incredible. So that's it. And thank you for your interest.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And I think that there's been other models, nationally. I mean, I know one in Massachusetts with the Innocence Project, which focused on this particular skill, and it made an immeasurable difference on both sides, to the individuals returning and to those and to the companies they were connected with. With regard to the California program, there was zero recidivism in this very selective group of inmates who were chosen to go into this program. And that was largely because they ended up walking out into jobs that were careers, essentially. And it
is being done. It is being done. And there's no reason why we can't do it too here. Yeah.
Thanks, Marcel. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Representative Buckby.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to touch on one thing, Ms. LaBelle. I appreciate your testimony. Thank you. Likely, the most impressive thing you said in the entire part of this I wanted to touch on is you said, I'm just a regular person calling, coming in. I appreciate, not that I don't appreciate our lobbyists who do a great job for the people they represent, but this is the kind of thing we need to hear on a regular basis. And it's tough for us to do our job if we don't have that from people like yourself. So thank you so much for showing the compassion and care that you have for this bill. And it means a lot to us for you to come on here. Not speaking on behalf of all of my colleagues, I wouldn't dare do so, but I know certainly a good majority appreciate the fact when constituents reach out and we get to hear from you directly. I think that's a critical piece, and I wish more people would do it. So thank you for doing so.
And let me just say thank you, because this whole little process here has been very enlightening for me. And I think people, they don't realize what goes into doing a good job as a legislator. And, I try to spread the word, but, the government is us. It is us. So, this chasm between, population and their government is just a false distinction. So thank you, because it's hard work. I appreciate it.
You are 100% right. That, you know, we're not here without you. So if people like you don't step up and tell us what you're thinking, then it's tough for us to make decisions and move forward. So thank you very much for doing so. And thank you for the moment, Mr. Chair.
Absolutely. And yes, we are very fortunate in Manchester to have Ms. LaBelle on our team. So
Thanks, Jeff. Thank you, Jeff.
and I appreciate you mentioning, you know, the issues with the security issues that I think have been identified. I know we have reached out and talked with the Board of Regents on this and kind of felt out how they were implementing the Google CERT program. And so I think they identified a couple barriers that we may be able to further discuss with the folks over at DOC as we kind of move this process along this session and beyond. So again, thank you for your testimony today. It's great to see you.
Thanks.
All right, no other questions? All right, thanks so much. Next up, we have Carolyn Cavallo from the Connecticut Bar Association. Good morning, or good afternoon, excuse me.
Good morning, afternoon, not sure whichever it is. Thank you for having me. Hello, Representative Curry and Senator Hartley, members of the committee. My name is Carolyn Cavallo. I'm the chair of the real property section of the Connecticut Bar Association, and we're here today to support raise Senate Bill number 99, an act establishing a working group to study remote notarial acts and the revised uniform law on notarial acts. Our testimony is being submitted on behalf of the real property section of the CBA. The real property section consists primarily of attorneys in private practice who represent consumers, businesses, lenders, and others involved in real estate transactions. Our members have a great interest in legislation pertaining to title to real property and in the possibility that notarial acts relating to real estate transactions might be done in the future by remote online notarization, or RON, as it's commonly referred to. The real property section has in previous years opposed proposed bills establishing RON due to our members' concerns that prior renditions of this legislation fell short in preserving the role of the attorney in real estate transactions, and that the previously proposed language failed to adequately guard against the unauthorized practice of law in violation of our Connecticut Statute 5188. The real property section recognizes that RON has been adopted in most of our states, and we have been engaging with other stakeholders and interested parties, including representatives from the mortgage and banking industries, title insurance companies, the Town Clerks Association, other bar association sections that are interested. And we are making an effort to move forward with language and compose a bill that will address the concerns of all of the stakeholders. Our support for the potential RON bill, which we are working on with these stakeholder factions, is contingent on certain revisions being made to the previously submitted bills as RON relates to real estate closings. Those proposed revisions have been worked into the revised version of the bill that we have submitted with our written testimony. So you have our written testimony as well as our proposed revisions to the bill that had previously been circulated. Those revisions and protections for the attorney's role in real estate transactions are as follows. That the remote notarial act be performed by an attorney licensed to practice in Connecticut, that the attorney is physically located in Connecticut at the time of the notarial act, that the attorney represents the individual signing the document or represents the entity on whose behalf that individual is signing the document, such as the lender, that the attorney's juris number is entered into the RON software as a prerequisite to signing and be inserted into the document itself, and we are also concerned, and we want to make sure that interstate recognition is not given to RON signings performed in accordance with RON laws of other jurisdictions. And this is all, again, pertaining to real estate transactions. Our additional concern, our additional proviso is that wills, codicils, and trusts be carved out of this session's version of RON, and that is because there's a more appropriate Uniform Act being released this summer that would be a more appropriate vehicle for those types of estate planning documents. So we look forward to continuing to work with the coalition that President George referenced earlier. It's a positive working group. We think our concerns, though they are serious concerns, can be addressed in language moving forward. So we respectfully would move this committee to allow us to continue working moving forward, and then consider our language when we come up with it. Thank you very much for your opportunity to testify today.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that testimony. You don't need our allowance. You already are doing it, so we appreciate that. Senator Harley, did you have any?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Hey, Carolyn, thanks for being with us today, and really for all the work that's gone on previous to today, because there were times when we were, or I should say, this conversation was in different places, appearing never to be able to be bridged. So I will tell you that it's been very welcomed update that there is this coalition moving forward. I do appreciate the situation with wills and estates, trusts. Can you just tell me a little bit more about what's going on that front? So that's a separate working group. Is that what you're saying?
As far as I'm aware, Senator, the probate section, and this is our main partner on this, has been the probate section of the CBA. And we are aware that there is a uniform law that is being finalized that will address remote online notarizations of those estate planning documents. And they don't want to preempt that uniform law. And once that uniform law is finalized this summer, they will be presenting their own bill that is particular to Connecticut for next session.
Yes, okay, because in our compromise proposal, we were carving those out as well as real estate. And, there was a large contingent of individuals, industry and practitioners who were, very concerned about the real estate sector with regard to competing with not just our neighboring states, but now on this instance, nationally, especially, as we saw with COVID, there was a lot of, remote transactions going on. And, we, although by virtue of the executive order, we're able to proceed in that manner, we now, have this break in that ability. So I'm glad to see where we are, and we need to just continue to, I think, perfect this proposal, and hopefully we can get it inked by the governors this session. So thanks, Carolyn. We'll certainly be in communication going through this, and we are grateful to the work that has been done thus far. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Any other questions from members? No, it does not look like it. Yes, again, we appreciate the time you are all putting in on this, and we look forward to hopefully having something in front of us by the end of this session. So we thank you for your time today.
Thank you, Chair.
Ginger, is there anyone that we have missed or that is now back in the room who was called and looked over?
Nope, we got everyone.
All right, so it would appear that this concludes our public hearing. Any final words from chairs or rankings?
None for me. It was a wonderful job. Thank you, everyone, for coming out and taking time to talk to us.
Ditto. Thanks again, Team Commerce, and looking forward to our next round. Ginger, can you acquaint us with what do we have next on the agenda? Did we talk about that yet? Or maybe we haven't said that yet, Mr. Chair?
We have not said it.
Okay, all right. But you know, we're Tuesday, Thursdays, so just keep some room for us.
And we'll be in touch shortly. So have a great afternoon, everyone.
Best. Bye-bye.